Today, we're diving into the absolute core of Napoleon Hill's classic Think and Grow Rich. This book is built around one single powerful secret for achieving success. A secret that, believe it or not, is said to have created more millionaires than pretty much any other idea in history. So, let's get right to it.
Right from the jump, the whole thing starts with a mystery. Napoleon Hill says that the secret to all great fortunes was passed down to him by Andrew Carnegie, who was, one of the richest men on the planet at the time. But Carnegie didn't just hand it to him on a silver platter. He gave him a challenge.
So what was this secret? What was this formula that Carnegie was so convinced could change literally anyone's life if they could just get their head around it?
Okay, so the backstory is pretty wild. Carnegie sends Hill on this epic 20-year-long quest. His mission? To study over 500 of the most successful people in America. We're talking giants like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, just to prove this formula worked. And here's the kicker. Hill claims the secret is mentioned over 100 times in his book, but he never actually spells it out. He was a big believer that it was way more powerful when you discovered it for yourself.
But even though Hill doesn't just name it, he gives us the foundation, and it's this: thoughts are things. That right there, that's the heart of it all. Every huge achievement, every massive fortune, it doesn't start with cash or connections. It all starts as a simple, intangible thought. But come on, how can a simple thought actually create a fortune? Well, Hill gives us the perfect case study with the story of a guy named Edwin C. Barnes.
Barnes' story is this whole process in action. He had just one single burning desire: to become a business associate of the great Thomas Edison. Not just an employee, mind you, but a partner. He didn't have a dime, so he literally hopped a freight train to get there. For years, he took any menial job he could find just to stay close to Edison, all the while holding on to that one definite purpose. And then, his big break came, disguised as a new machine that none of the other salesmen wanted to touch. Barnes just knew he could sell it, and he did, so well in fact that he landed a national contract and made an absolute fortune.
And you gotta hear what Edison himself said about that first meeting. He admitted Barnes looked like a tramp, but he said he saw something in his eyes that was far more powerful. This look of absolute, unshakable determination. It wasn't his clothes that got him in the door. It was the sheer force and clarity of his thought.
So that's an incredible story, right? But it leaves you with a really big question. How do you actually do that? How can you or I replicate that process?
Well, lucky for us, Hill doesn't just leave us hanging with inspiration. He lays out a practical 6-step formula for turning that intangible desire into cold, hard cash.
Now, notice the key words here: exact, exactly, definite. You can't just wish for a lot of money. No, you have to fix in your mind the exact amount. You have to figure out exactly what you're willing to give in return. You need a definite date and a definite plan. Then you write it all down. There's no room for kinda or maybe here. Vagueness is the absolute enemy of success in this system. And here's the last step, and it is absolutely crucial. When you read that statement out loud, twice a day, you have to see yourself, feel yourself, and believe yourself to already be in possession of the money. Now, this isn't just wishful thinking. It's about literally training your brain to accept this new reality as fact long before it actually shows up in your bank account. Okay, but even if you have the perfect plan, Hill gives a huge warning about the one thing that stops most people dead in their tracks. He illustrates it with this incredible cautionary tale he calls 3 feet from gold. The core lesson here boils down to a universal truth. Most failure doesn't come from a bad plan or bad luck. It comes from the simple habit of giving up way too soon when you're hit with what feels like a permanent dead end. And in the story of a man named R.U. Darby, the price of quitting was measured in a distance of just 3 feet.
So the story goes like this. Darby's uncle strikes gold. They raise a bunch of money, buy all the right machinery, and for a while the payoff is insane. They've got one of the richest mines in Colorado. But then, the vein of gold just vanishes. They drill and find nothing. Finally, completely defeated, they just quit. They sell all their expensive equipment to a local junkman for a few $100. Well, that junkman was smart. He hired an engineer who figured out that the gold vein was waiting for them just 3 feet from where the Darbys had stopped drilling. The junkman became a multi-millionaire. But here's the most important part of that story. Instead of letting that mistake destroy him, Darby learned from it. He went into the insurance business and he made a new rule for himself. He would never, ever stop just because someone said no. Because he knew that no might just be 3 feet away from a yes.
He took the lesson from his biggest failure and used it to become one of the top insurance salesmen in the entire country. As Hill writes, failure is often just a test. He calls it a trickster that loves to show up right before you hit the finish line, just to see if you have the persistence to take that one last step.
So, when you put it all together, a burning desire, a definite plan, and the persistence to push past what feels like failure, what's the real power source driving all of it? And this brings us right back to the ultimate secret. It's not some magic force, it's not a lucky break. It is the internal, personal discipline to control your own mind, to choose your most dominant thoughts and hold on to them with absolute faith until they become your physical reality.
Hill loved to use these famous lines from the poem Invictus to really drive this point home. We are the masters of our fate for one reason and one reason only, because we have the power to direct our own thoughts.
And so this whole philosophy comes right back around to you. The principles have been laid out, the examples are clear. The only question left is the most important one. What desire will you choose to make your reality?